When we digitize, we can become absorbed in using only the tools that our digitizing software offers us. So it's easy to overlook some of the useful tools and features that other programs can offer us. One of the things I'd like to look at now is what's called a magnifier. It's offered by Windows and it's actually available to any Windows program that we use. So let's get straight to it. How do we switch it on? On your keyboard you will see a key with the Windows logo. It looks like 4 boxes or a window pane. Press that key and then also press your plus key. And what happens is it will bring up a little toolbar, which is the Magnifier toolbar, and it will bring up a box that will be around the cursor, and your cursor sits in the center of that box. Now you move your cursor now over anything that you want to look at and watch what happens. It's literally just a magnifying lens that goes over the top. Let me look at some of these here. Some of the writing on some of these is quite small, so if you wanted to look at that, Mavavi. This is where I have Mbird. Up here, my garment designer software, Hatch 2, Digitizer 5.5, version 5. Here's the CorelDRAW stuff that came with 5.5, Photoshop, Acrobat, and so on. So you're beginning to get the idea, obviously. Let's go back here. If I want it not as high, I can press the minus sign, take it down, press the plus sign, increase the magnification up to 500. I tend to keep it at 3. I actually use this tool quite a lot, and also I recommend that you keep it at lens. You can play with some of the others afterwards and explore those yourself. And one of the things you can do here is, let's go to settings. You don't have to have the box this large. What settings does, it opens up the magnifier page, and I'm going to switch this off now, and I can switch it off either by going over to the key here and moving that slider over there, or I can use the keyboard command of the Windows box again, but this time I press escape with it. Okay, I can turn it back on, or I can turn it off. I can change my zoom level here. I like to keep it at 300. You can still change it when the toolbar comes up. You can alter the size of the box. I'm going to switch it on and you can see this happen here. I'll switch it on again. I can actually now use it on this page, and I increase the width or decrease the width. I'm going to decrease the width, and I'm going to make the whole thing a bit smaller. Put that at 50, say. Keep it at that. So I've got a nice little rectangle here. Something else that I can do is that I might not want this little toolbar all the time on the screen because it might take up a bit of space or cover something that I want to look at. So what you can do is you can select in the settings this setting here that says collapse the magnifying window to a floating magnifying glass. And look, the toolbar has changed into a magnifying glass. You see? But when I actually float over it, if I click onto that, it brings it back. And then as I move away from it again, if you watch it rather than watching my cursor, you'll see it goes back to the magnifying glass, and that's also quite useful when you're using it on an application. Let's go over, press this, and if I want, I can restore and I can pick up a menu, or I can go back. So you can see all sorts of useful bits and pieces. So I'm now going to go up to the top here, and I'm going to close that window. Actually, I'm not. I'm going to undo that. I want to keep it as the toolbar. Now I'm going to close that here. Alright. Let's switch it off again. Windows and escape. The next feature that we'll look at is another Windows feature, and it's the view options that we have. We're going to look at it in Explorer because quite often we'll download designs and the folders don't always turn up like we expect them to. So we'll actually use the magnifying glass in here as well at some point. And so when we collect our fit to stitch exercises here, at the moment this looks like it's just a list of folders. Let's look here and we just have a list with the details of the fold or the embroidery files that are actually in that folder. On the left in Windows Explorer we have the tree view, and in the middle we have the pane, or the window pane it's called, with all the files in. Now at the top here you've got File, you've got Home, Share, and the one that we want is View. And there are different ways in which you can set this out. So on the View toolbar we can look at it in Details. Details is actually quite useful and it's available in lots of other Windows based programs as well. And it means that you can sort your files. Sometimes you can end up with hundreds of embroidery files in a folder, and you might say, I want to look at the one that I did last or the one that is the earliest. You can click these little headings at the top. But the writing obviously is quite small. So let's pick up our magnifying glass. I'm going to press the Windows icon on the keyboard, hold it down and press the plus key. Here is my magnifying glass, and here we have across the headings. If I click on Name, it sorts these by name. If I click on Date, you can see it sorts the files in the order of the date, or by the type. At the moment there are EOF files and M files in there. If I do that, it just organises them according. Perhaps it's the largest file, that's the mbird file, which is the largest, and then these are all the Wilcom, Hatch and Janome files. I'm going to switch the magnifier off, so the Windows key and Escape. Another way that I can actually increase the size of what I can see here is I can look at content, I can take a tiles view, I can look at small icons, medium icons, large icons and extra large icons. But of course the consistent thing all the way along is whilst the actual icon or the picture gets bigger, the words or the lettering underneath them doesn't. And similarly, if I actually select one of these, let's say for example I select the Hatch 2 one here, I have on the right here my preview pane, and it shows me some information about it. Again, that writing is quite small even though I've chosen the large view. So select my window pane on the keyboard and my plus key. I select my magnifier and I can run it over the information that's in there. I can, if I want, go back and enlarge the size of this by going onto the toolbar, going to the settings and making the window of the lens that is around my cursor larger if I want it to, or I can just quickly have a scan around and have a little look. So what have we got here? We've got the swirls exercise, and that's the E3.5 version. This is the E3.6 version of the embroidery file, E3, E4, Hatch 2, and obviously that's the mbird one, the EOF file. I'm going to turn off the magnifying glass, so the Windows key and Escape, and turn it off. If you want that preview pane on the right hand side, then let's go back up to this View toolbar here. We have our navigation pane, which is highlighted at the moment, and then you can choose either the preview pane or the details pane. I like to have it on a preview pane if I'm going to be looking at things like embroidery files. Now, the reason that you cannot see a picture of the EOF file is I do not have mbird Iconizer. I only have mbird and Studio. I didn't buy Iconizer. I didn't need it. So we can look at another file here. Now This file again, I can go to view and I can say I want to see medium icons or I want to see large icons. You get the idea. Now let's look quickly at using the magnifying glass in a different Windows application. This happens to be WordPad, which we're using for looking at the document, which is the get to fit to stitch exercises. Up on the top here we have another ribbon toolbar. File, Home, the one we want is View. If we need this to look bigger, we can zoom in here, we can zoom out. If we want it to go back to 100%, we can click on the 100% page here. If we need to look at this very small writing on the toolbars, again, the Windows logo on the keyboard and the plus sign, bring up the magnifying glass, come over the top, zoom in, zoom out, 100%, or we can just run the magnifying glass over the top of the document. Alternatively, we can go down to the status bar at the bottom, and in this application here, if you look, there is a little zoom key at the bottom. So I can increase the zoom, I can decrease the zoom, or if I wanted to, I could actually play with the slider. Don't mean to make you dizzy, I'm trying to do it fairly slowly. So let's take that back. Let's say that that is at 160 and it's still not great. So I can use this over the top. Now, at the moment my lens is quite small, so we can go and we can make it bigger, or one of the things that you can do with this is you can go full screen. And what it does, it makes the whole screen, your cursor now just moves the document around the screen, and I've magnified it up to 300, so I can just literally scroll down and the whole screen is the size of the lens, and when I've had enough of that I can go back and click on lens. Just another example of how you can use this little handy tool with other bits and pieces. So Windows logo and escape on the keyboard, and I shall see you in video number 2.